Beneath a swirling sky heavy with dark clouds, a lone figure stood unwavering atop the jagged cliff that overlooked a war-torn world. She was no ordinary woman. She was the last beacon of humanity's survival, the final spark in an unrelenting storm that threatened to consume everything she had ever known. The air was thick with smoke and the distant roar of destruction, but her eyes, sharp and burning with fierce determination, pierced through the chaos like a lighthouse guiding lost ships through a tempest. Around her, the alien war drones drifted silently, menacing silhouettes with sleek, angular bodies shimmering with bioluminescent veins that pulsed ominously in shades of green and violet. Their presence was a stark reminder of the overwhelming force she faced, yet not a flicker of doubt crossed her face. Every breath she drew was a promise, a silent oath forged in the fires of despair and hope intertwined. "This war will be ours," she vowed, her voice a whisper carried only by the wind that whipped around her. "We are the ones whose spirit never breaks." In that moment, standing on the precipice between annihilation and survival, she embodied the raw essence of human resiliency, a resilience that no machine, no alien might, could ever truly understand or extinguish. The ground beneath her feet trembled as distant explosions lit the horizon like violent stars in a night sky. The city below lay in ruins, its towering skyscrapers reduced to twisted metal and shattered glass, flames licking hungrily at the remnants of a once thriving civilization. The acrid scent of burning fuel and ozone filled the air, mingling with the metallic tang of the alien drones hovering above. These drones, crafted with terrifying precision and alien ingenuity, moved with predatory grace, their multiple appendages capable of emitting searing plasma blasts that had already decimated entire battalions of human soldiers. Yet, amidst this overwhelming display of alien technology, she remained resolute. As the first wave of drones descended, their whirring rotors cutting through the smoky haze, she sprang into action, not with brute force but with the cunning and agility that only a human mind, honed by centuries of struggle and adaptation, could wield. Using the jagged terrain as her ally, she darted through the shadows, avoiding detection as she coordinated guerrilla strikes against the drone's vulnerable systems. Her movements were fluid, a deadly dance of survival that left her enemies bewildered and vulnerable. Each attack was a calculated risk, a precise strike aimed at crippling the drone's communication arrays or disabling their plasma emitters. Her knowledge of the enemy's technology gleaned from countless battles and stolen secrets gave her an edge that no amount of alien firepower could match. With every drone she brought down, a ripple of hope spread through the fractured human resistance. Her face, illuminated intermittently by the fiery bursts of distant explosions, reflected not just the physical toll of battle but the emotional weight of carrying an entire species' hopes. There were moments when exhaustion threatened to overwhelm her, when the screams of fallen comrades echoed in her mind like ghosts refusing to rest. Yet she pressed on, driven by something deeper than survival, by the unbreakable conviction that humanity's spirit was worth fighting for, no matter the cost. The aliens, blinded by their technological superiority, underestimated her resolve. They saw her as a mere human, fragile and replaceable, a relic of a weaker race destined for extinction. But they failed to recognize the fire within her, a fire forged through suffering, loss, and an unyielding will to protect everything she held dear. That fire blazed brighter than any plasma weapon, stronger than any shield. In a pivotal moment, as a squadron of drones closed in to encircle her position, she triggered a series of improvised explosives hidden among the rubble. The resulting chain reaction sent shockwaves through the battlefield, disrupting the drone's formation and buying precious seconds for the human fighters to regroup. Her tactics were not merely about destruction, they were about inspiring hope, about showing humanity that even in the darkest hours, victory was possible. The battle raged on through the night, a brutal symphony of light and shadow, metal and flesh. Her silhouette, etched against the burning skyline, became a symbol, an emblem of defiance against insurmountable odds. Word of her courage spread among the surviving humans, igniting a spark that soon grew into a roaring blaze of resistance. Soldiers rallied around her leadership, their spirits lifted by the knowledge that they were not alone. Despite the relentless assault, she never wavered. Her eyes, sharp and unyielding, scanned the horizon for any sign of weakness in the alien ranks. Every decision, every movement was precise, driven by an instinct honed through endless training and an intimate understanding of both her enemies and her own people. She was not just fighting for survival, she was fighting to reclaim humanity's place in the galaxy. As dawn approached, painting the sky with muted shades of orange and teal, the tide of battle began to shift. The alien drones, once confident in their dominance, found themselves outmaneuvered and outmatched by the sheer will of a single human warrior and the reinvigorated forces she inspired. One by one, their formations faltered, their plasma blasts missing their marks as the human resistance pressed forward. In the final moments of the confrontation, she led a decisive strike against the alien command drone, the heart of their operations. Navigating through a hail of energy fire, she breached its defenses and planted a device that would disable its systems permanently. The explosion that followed was not just a tactical victory, it was a statement, a declaration that humanity would no longer be subjugated or erased. As silence descended over the battlefield, broken only by the distant crackle of dying fires, she stood amidst the ruins, a solitary figure against the vastness of the scarred landscape. Her breath was heavy, her body battered, but her spirit burned brighter than ever. She had not only survived, she had changed the course of history. This was the day humanity stood alone, and the galaxy would never forget. The day when hope, courage, and indomitable will proved mightier than the most advanced alien technology. The day when a single human, against all odds, became the beacon that rallied a species back from the brink of extinction. And as the sun rose higher, casting its golden light upon the shattered world, she knew that this victory was only the beginning. The war was far from over, but now, armed with unshakable resolve and united hearts, humanity would fight no longer as victims, but as warriors destined to reclaim their place among the stars. Smoke choked the horizon, mingling with the fiery glow of a shattered cityscape where once proud towers stood sentinel over humanity's last bastion. Yet amid the ruins, she moved with a fierce grace, a solitary force of nature defying the onslaught. The alien war drones buzzed overhead like dark thunderclouds, their metallic bodies gleaming with otherworldly energy, each pulse of light a reminder of the deadly technology arrayed against her. But she was no ordinary soldier. Every step she took was measured, every breath a silent calculation as she wove through the debris-strewn battlefield with uncanny precision. Her mind raced faster than the drones' whirling rotors, anticipating their patterns, predicting their strikes. In the deafening cacophony of war, the clash of plasma fire, the crackle of explosions, she found clarity. She was both hunter and hunted, a shadow striking swiftly then disappearing before the enemy could respond. Her weapons, cobbled from scavenged tech and human ingenuity, hummed with lethal intent as she unleashed torrents of electromagnetic pulses, disrupting the drone's sensors and blinding their targeting systems. The fight was brutal, a relentless test of endurance and will. Time and again, she slipped through the drone's grasp, turning their advanced machinery against them with guerrilla tactics that blurred the line between chaos and control. Her scars told tales of narrow escapes and fierce encounters, but her eyes, a fiery and unyielding, spoke of an unwavering purpose. With each drone she disabled, a spark of hope ignited among the scattered human survivors, their whispered prayers and silent cheers fueling her resolve. At a critical moment, the drones adjusted their formation, attempting to trap her in a deadly net of plasma fire. Yet she remained calm, drawing on the depth of her training and the unbreakable spirit that had carried her this far. With a deft throw, she activated an EMP grenade that erupted in a blinding flash, sending a shockwave that crippled the enemy's electronic systems and sent several drones spiraling out of control. Seizing the opening, she launched a daring assault on the alien command center, navigating through a maze of wreckage and fire. The battle's crescendo approached as she faced the command drone, the source of the alien fleet's coordination and power. Its cold, glowing eyes locked onto her, but she met its gaze without hesitation. In that instant, she was no longer just a soldier, she was the embodiment of humanity's unyielding defiance. With a final, explosive strike, she disabled the command drone, sending shockwaves through the enemy ranks that fractured their cohesion and forced a chaotic retreat. As dawn's first light pierced the smoky sky, she stood battered but victorious amidst the ruins, a solitary figure whose courage had altered the fate of her people. The silence that followed was not peace, but the calm before a new storm. Yet in that moment, Humanity had proven something undeniable, that no matter the odds, the spirit to fight, to endure, and to rise again could never be extinguished. Beneath the heavy cloak of twilight, the battlefield lay scarred and silent, a graveyard for the fallen, where the echoes of humanity's desperate struggle still lingered like ghosts in the wind. Yet amid this desolation, she remained vigilant, her silhouette carved sharply against the dying light. Every muscle in her body ached from the relentless conflict, every breath a reminder of the fragile thread on which survival hung. But exhaustion was a luxury she could not afford. The war was far from over. Her eyes, sharp and piercing, scanned the horizon as faint hums resonated from distant alien reinforcements. These war machines were unlike anything the galaxy had seen, as sentient, adaptive, and deadly. The drones had evolved, learning from every encounter, growing more ruthless with each passing moment. But so had she. Each battle had sharpened her instincts, forged her will into an unbreakable blade. In the shadows of the ruined city, she rallied the scattered survivors, men and women battered but unbound, igniting a spark of unity where once there had been despair. Her voice, calm yet commanding, wove through the ranks like a rallying cry, binding fractured hearts with a common purpose: survival, resistance, and eventual victory. Together, they prepared to face the next assault, not as isolated fighters, but as a force reborn from the ashes. She devised strategies that leveraged every advantage the ruined terrain afforded: hidden tunnels, vantage points, and remnants of alien technology turned against its makers. Under her guidance, human ingenuity blossomed in defiance of extinction. Her presence was a beacon, her courage infectious. Even as alien war drones darkened the skies once more, the human resistance was no longer the hunted, it had become the hunter. When the enemy launched its fiercest attack yet, she met it head-on. The clash was brutal, a maelstrom of light and sound, metal and fury. But through it all, she moved like a force of nature, unyielding, unpredictable, unstoppable. Her tactical genius turned the tide. Every move was a calculated strike against the alien invaders' weaknesses. The battle raged until the alien forces faltered, their morale shattered by the unrelenting human spirit. As the dust settled, she stood amidst the battered remnants of the battlefield, a living testament to humanity's will to survive. The galaxy would remember this day not just as a fight for survival, but as the birth of a legend born from a single woman's courage, a symbol that even in the darkest hour, hope could blaze brighter than any star. Under a sky swollen with thunderclouds and streaked with the fading light of a dying day, the battlefield had transformed into a chaotic tempest of smoke, fire, and unyielding conflict. The once proud city, now a shattered skeleton of twisted metal and crumbling concrete, bore witness to a war that had ravaged the very soul of humanity. Yet amid this ruin, she moved with the grace of a starman, unrelenting, fierce, and unbreakable. Her body ached from the endless hours of combat, muscles trembling beneath layers of dirt and sweat, but her spirit burned brighter than ever. The alien war drones buzzed like ominous thunder overhead, their sleek, alien forms glinting with deadly precision. Each pulse of their bioluminescent veins was a reminder of the advanced technology arrayed against her, a cold and calculating force that sought to extinguish the last flickers of human resistance. But she was no ordinary soldier. She was a beacon of hope, a living symbol of defiance against impossible odds. With every breath, she summoned the strength of all who had fallen before her, the fathers, mothers, brothers, and sisters who had given their lives for the chance at freedom. Their memories coursed through her veins, fueling an indomitable will to fight. The battle raged like a savage storm, a brutal dance of light and shadow, fire and steel. She moved through the chaos with calculated precision, striking at the enemy's vulnerabilities with a combination of guerrilla tactics and unshakable courage. Her weapons, fashioned from scavenged tech and human ingenuity, hummed with lethal energy as she disabled drones with electromagnetic pulses and targeted blasts that sent their systems into disarray. Every strike was a message to the invaders and to her own people that humanity was not yet broken. The enemy's confidence wavered as their drones faltered, their formations breaking under the relentless human assault. She saw the moment of weakness, seized it, and pressed forward with the fury of a tempest unleashed. Amidst the roar of battle, she coordinated with the scattered human fighters, their voices rising in defiant cries that echoed across the ruined cityscape. Together, they fought not just for survival, but for the reclaiming of their world, their future, their very existence. When the dust finally began to settle and the alien drones retreated into the smoky horizon, she stood tall amidst the ruins, a warrior scarred but victorious. Her eyes, reflecting the first light of dawn, held the promise of a new beginning. This was more than a battle won, it was the rekindling of hope, the assertion that as long as one stood to fight, humanity would endure. The galaxy would remember this day, the day a single woman turned the tide, not just with weapons and strategy, but with the unbreakable spirit of a people who refused to be erased. The relentless hum of alien war drones filled the thickened air as night cloaked the battlefield in an eerie darkness punctuated only by flickering fires and the cold glow of distant explosions. The city lay in ruins, a skeletal shadow of its former self, but at its heart, a solitary figure moved with unwavering purpose. Her every step was a defiant beat in the symphony of resistance, a testament to the unyielding spirit that refused to be silenced. Her eyes, sharp and alert, scanned the ruined streets for signs of enemy movement, her mind calculating every possible threat and opportunity. The drones, sleek and menacing, hovered like predatory beasts, their bioluminescent veins pulsing with ominous light. They were the ultimate weapon of an alien force bent on extinguishing humanity's flame. Yet she stood undeterred, a beacon in the encroaching darkness. The battlefield was a chaotic blend of smoke and shadow, where survival demanded both cunning and courage. She used every scrap of knowledge, every piece of technology scavenged from fallen foes, to turn the tide in humanity's favor. Electromagnetic pulse grenades, improvised hacking devices, and swift guerrilla tactics became her arsenal against the seemingly invincible enemy. Her movements were a blur, darting between cover, striking swiftly and retreating before the drones could respond. She was a ghost in the machine, a human force that no amount of alien technology could predict or control. Each successful strike against the enemy lifted the spirits of the scattered human survivors, their whispered prayers turning into shouts of hope and defiance. But the war was far from over. The drones adapted, growing smarter, more aggressive with each encounter. They unleashed coordinated assaults designed to flush her out, to crush the fragile human resistance once and for all. Yet she anticipated their moves, setting traps and ambushes that turned the enemy's strength against itself. In the heat of battle, her leadership shone brightest. She rallied the weary fighters, transforming ragged bands of survivors into a disciplined force united by purpose and hope. Her voice cut through the chaos, steady and commanding, a beacon guiding them through the darkness. When the moment came to strike a decisive blow, she led the charge with unwavering resolve. The assault was fierce, a maelstrom of fire and fury that shook the very foundations of the shattered city. Her tactical brilliance and relentless spirit shattered the enemy's coordination, forcing the alien war drones into disarray and retreat. As dawn broke, painting the sky with hues of orange and gold, she stood among the ruins, a symbol of humanity's indomitable will to survive and reclaim their world. The scars of battle marked her body, but her spirit blazed brighter than ever. This was not merely a victory, it was a declaration to the galaxy that humanity would not fall quietly. The echoes of that day would resonate through time, a testament to the courage of one woman who stood alone, facing impossible odds, and changed the course of history forever. The air was thick with smoke and tension as the battle stretched into its darkest hours. Flames flickered against the jagged ruins, casting long shadows that danced like specters across the shattered landscape. Yet amid the chaos, she stood unmoved, her presence a calm within the storm, a pillar of unwavering resolve. Every heartbeat echoed like a drum, syncing with the distant hum of alien war drones patrolling the skies. Their cold, mechanical precision contrasted starkly with the fierce warmth radiating from within her. Though her body bore the marks of exhaustion, cuts, bruises, and the grime of endless combat, her eyes burned with a fire that no enemy weapon could extinguish. She moved deliberately, each step a testament to her unbreakable will. The ground beneath her was scarred by countless clashes, but she was undeterred, pressing forward with the relentless determination of someone fighting not just for herself, but for all of humanity. Her hands gripped her weapons with steady purpose, ready to strike at a moment's notice. The drones closed in, their plasma emitters glowing ominously as they prepared for another assault. But she was ready. With swift precision, She activated a series of improvised electromagnetic devices, sending disruptive pulses that scrambled the drone's targeting systems. Their advance faltered, their formations breaking as confusion spread through their ranks. In the midst of the fray, she rallied the scattered fighters, her voice cutting through the noise like a clarion call. "Hold the line, for every step we lose, we reclaim twice as much." The humans responded, their spirits rekindled by her unwavering courage. Together, they formed a wall of resistance that pushed back the alien invaders, each strike fueled by desperation and hope. The battle raged with brutal intensity, but her tactical genius turned the tide. She anticipated the enemy's maneuvers, adapting swiftly to their changing tactics. Each move she made was calculated, every action a step closer to victory. The drones, despite their technological superiority, found themselves outmatched by the indomitable human spirit she embodied. As the first light of dawn pierced the smoky veil, the enemy began to retreat, their once mighty assault reduced to a faltering withdrawal. Exhausted but victorious, she stood tall amidst the ruins, a symbol of resilience and hope. The scars of battle etched into her skin were reminders of the cost, but also of the unyielding strength that had carried humanity through its darkest hour. This was more than a battle won, it was a testament to the power of courage, leadership, and an unbreakable will. The galaxy would remember the day humanity refused to be conquered, led by a woman whose spirit shone brighter than any star. The battlefield was a chaos of shattered metal and flickering fires, yet amidst the ruins, she stood as a beacon of unyielding defiance. The alien war drone as a sleek, lethal machine as a buzzed like malevolent wasps overhead, their bioluminescent veins casting eerie glows against the smoky sky. But she was undeterred. Every fiber of her being pulsed with resolve, every breath a promise that humanity's spirit would not be extinguished. With tactical precision honed by countless battles, she maneuvered through the fractured landscape, turning enemy technology against itself. Electromagnetic pulses and guerrilla strikes crippled the drones one by one, sending shockwaves through the alien forces. Her movements were a deadly dance, fluid, calculated, unstoppable. Her eyes burned with a fierce light as she coordinated with the human resistance, rallying fighters whose courage had been rekindled by her example. The drones faltered, their formations breaking under relentless assault. She was no longer just a soldier, she was a symbol of the living embodiment of humanity's indomitable will. In the crescendo of battle, she led the final strike against the alien command drone, the heart of their operations. Navigating through a hailstorm of plasma fire, she planted the device that would disable it, sending a devastating explosion rippling through enemy ranks. The tide had turned. The invaders were forced into retreat, their dominance shattered by a single woman's courage and cunning. As dawn broke, painting the sky in hues of gold and crimson, she stood amidst the wreckage, a warrior scarred but unbowed. Her victory was more than a tactical success, it was a declaration that humanity would fight on, its spirit unbroken and its future reclaimed. The galaxy would never forget the day a lone human rose to defy extinction and sparked a legacy of hope. The city lay cloaked in darkness, its broken skyline etched against the pale light of a distant dawn. Smoke curled from smoldering ruins, and the air was heavy with the scent of ash and desperation. Yet in the midst of this desolation, she moved with purposeful grace, an unyielding and resolute, a lone flame refusing to be extinguished. Alien war drones prowled the skies, their cold eyes scanning for any sign of movement. Each drone was a masterwork of alien technology, sleek, deadly, and nearly unstoppable. But she had learned their patterns, their weaknesses, and now wielded that knowledge like a weapon. Using the shattered urban landscape to her advantage, she struck with calculated precision, disabling the enemy's sensors and communications one by one. Her leadership transformed scattered survivors into a cohesive force. Her voice cut through the chaos like a beacon of hope, inspiring those around her to fight with renewed vigor. As human fighters surged forward, their defiance echoed through the ruins, shaking the very foundations of the alien invaders' confidence. The battle intensified, a brutal dance of fire and steel. Yet, her tactical brilliance and unbreakable spirit drove the resistance onward. Each move she made was a step closer to reclaiming their world. Alien drones faltered under relentless assault, their formation breaking apart as the human forces pressed the advantage. When the final assault came, She was at the forefront, leading with courage and unwavering resolve. The enemy's command drone fell, its systems shattered by her decisive strike. With that blow, the tide turned irrevocably. The invaders retreated into the shadows from which they came, leaving behind a battered but unbroken humanity. As dawn broke fully over the horizon, the city's ruins seemed to breathe with new life, a testament to survival, resilience, and hope. She stood amidst the rubble, a living symbol of humanity's refusal to bow. The galaxy would remember this day, the day a single woman ignited the spark that would blaze a path toward freedom. The night sky crackled with distant thunder, and the battlefield was bathed in the cold, eerie glow of alien war drones patrolling relentlessly above. Their metallic forms sliced through the darkness, ominous and unyielding, casting flickering shadows over the ruins where humanity's last defenders clung to survival. Amidst this grim tableau, she moved with the silent precision of a predator, a lone wolf navigating the chaos with unparalleled skill and unbreakable resolve. Her body was battered, her breath ragged, but her mind remained razor-sharp. Every movement was deliberate, every decision the result of countless battles etched into memory. She was the embodiment of human tenacity, a force that refused to be broken despite overwhelming odds. The drones, for all their advanced technology, could not anticipate the depth of her will or the cunning with which she exploited their every flaw. In the shadowed alleys and crumbling buildings, she set traps and orchestrated ambushes, turning the enemy's strength against itself. Electromagnetic pulses rendered their sensors useless. Hacked signals sowed confusion among their ranks. Her guerrilla tactics were relentless and devastating, a constant thorn in the side of the alien invaders. Despite the isolation and exhaustion, she inspired those around her. Scattered fighters, once broken and disheartened, rallied at her call, their spirits reignited by her courage. Together, they formed a formidable resistance, each victory a testament to their collective will. As dawn approached, the alien drones began to falter, their coordinated strikes losing cohesion under the weight of her relentless assault. She seized the moment, leading a decisive offensive that shattered the enemy's lines and forced a chaotic retreat. Standing amidst the smoke and ruin, she was not just a survivor, she was a legend in the making, the face of humanity's unyielding defiance. The galaxy would forever remember the day when one lone human rose to challenge the impossible, proving that even against the darkest storm, hope could prevail. The air was thick with the acrid sting of burning metal and ozone as the battlefield roared with the fury of relentless conflict. Flames flickered across the shattered ruins, illuminating the determined figure who moved through the chaos like a force of nature. Each step she took was heavy with purpose, every breath a testament to the indomitable will that refused to surrender. Above, alien war drones swarmed like a deadly storm, their sleek, mechanical forms pulsing with eerie light as they hunted relentlessly. Yet she stood undeterred, weaving through the debris with the grace and precision of a seasoned warrior. Her eyes, sharp and unyielding, scanned for weakness, calculating, adapting, striking with ruthless efficiency. The drones, though equipped with advanced technology, found themselves outmatched by human ingenuity and unbreakable spirit. With a mix of guerrilla tactics and cutting-edge weaponry salvaged from fallen foes, she dismantled their formations piece by piece. Electromagnetic pulses scrambled their sensors, explosive traps shredded their ranks, and swift, precise strikes crippled their command structures. Her leadership galvanized the scattered human forces, transforming desperation into defiance. Voices once silenced by fear now rose in battle cries, a chorus of hope amid the ruin. Every victory, no matter how small, was a step toward reclaiming what was last, a future forged in fire and blood. As the tide of battle turned, she led the final assault on the alien command drone, the nerve center of the enemy's operations. Navigating a gauntlet of plasma fire, she planted a device that would cripple their coordination and shatter their will to fight. The explosion that followed was not just a tactical victory, it was a declaration. When the dust settled and the enemy fled, she stood amidst the wreckage, battered but unbowed. Her scars were the marks of sacrifice, her spear the beacon that would guide humanity forward. The galaxy would remember this day, the day humanity rose not just to survive, but to dominate. Clouds hung low over the broken cityscape, casting long shadows that swallowed the ruins in an oppressive gloom. The air was thick with smoke and a bitter scent of burnt metal, a relentless reminder of the war that had scorched every inch of this once thriving world. Amidst the rubble and ruin, she stood a solitary figure framed against the dying light, every fiber of her being a beacon of defiance in the face of extinction. Her eyes, sharp and unwavering, scanned the horizon where alien war drones prowled like mechanical vultures, their ominous silhouettes etched against the crimson sky. These drones, sleek and deadly, moved with a precision born of advanced alien technology, their multiple appendages humming with lethal energy ready to strike. Yet she was undeterred. For every threat they posed, she had an answer forged from humanity's resilience and ingenuity. The ground beneath her feet was scarred by the firestorm of countless battles, a jagged landscape of twisted steel and shattered concrete. She moved with purposeful grace, navigating the treacherous terrain with the skill and intuition of a seasoned warrior. Every step was a calculated risk, every breath a silent prayer that this would be the turning point of the moment when humanity's fate would shift from desperation to hope. In the shadows, hidden among the ruins, she rallied the scattered survivors of those who had refused to succumb to fear or despair. Her voice, steady and resolute, cut through the chaos, binding them together with a common purpose. She was more than a leader, she was the living embodiment of their collective will, the spark igniting a flame that would refuse to be extinguished. The drones closed in, their sensors glowing as they locked on to movement, but she was ready. With swift precision, she deployed electromagnetic pulse devices that crackled through the air, disrupting the alien machine's targeting systems. The drones faltered, their once impenetrable formations breaking apart like glass under the weight of human resolve. Her guerrilla tactics turned the tide in this desperate battle. She struck with ruthless efficiency, exploiting every weakness and adapting to every new threat. The drone's advanced technology was formidable, but it lacked the one thing humanity possessed in abundance: the indomitable spirit of survival. The battle raged into the night, a brutal dance of light and shadow, fire and steel, but she remained unyielding, a force of nature that no alien weapon could contain. Each victory against the enemy sent ripples of hope through the fractured human resistance, rekindling a fire that threatened to blaze into a revolution. As dawn approached, painting the sky with streaks of gold and pink, the enemy's assault waned. Their war drones, once confident and relentless, began to retreat, their formations disintegrating under the relentless pressure of human defiance. She stood amidst the battered ruins, battered herself but unbroken, a living testament to the power of courage and determination. This was more than a battle won, it was a turning point, the moment when humanity declared to the galaxy that it would no longer be a forgotten footnote in the annals of war, the day when the lone woman's unwavering resolve became the catalyst for a new dawn, a dawn where hope burned brighter than any star. The rain came without warning, a cold, hard, and merciless slamming against the broken earth like the rhythm of war drums. Smoke curled from shattered buildings, dancing with the mist as if the city itself still gasped for breath. Craters smoldered, wreckage hissed, and the scent of ozone mixed with blood lingered like a ghost. And in the middle of it all, she walked forward, and not as a victim, not as a survivor, but as the chosen spark of something far greater: retaliation. Every step she took left behind muddy imprints on the soaked ground, but her gaze was dry and unflinching. Her armor, torn and scorched, clung to her like the battle itself refused to let go. Yet in her eyes burned a fire so fierce it seemed to part the storm. The alien drones circled overhead, recalibrating, adapting, searching. They had returned stronger, faster, more coordinated. And yet, even now, they could not understand the anomaly standing in the ruins below. She didn't retreat. She didn't submit. She stared straight into their synthetic eyes and dared them to try again. The resistance, now more than a scattered group of fighters, had transformed under her leadership into something dangerously close to an army. And they had one mission: to strike where it hurt most. She had discovered their central neural relay hub hidden deep beneath a collapsed alien structure, pulsing like a black heart buried in the skin of the earth. It controlled drone behavior, response times, and above all, their ability to learn and adapt. Destroy that, and the enemy would bleed. With rain cascading down her face and war echoing through the empty buildings, she led the infiltration. Through tunnels of collapsed concrete and forgotten subway systems, she and her team moved like shadows, silent, deadly, unstoppable. Her hand gestures replaced spoken words, her eyes alone giving orders. No one questioned her judgment anymore. She had become a myth in flesh, a walking rebellion, and myths didn't hesitate. As they reached the relay structure, glowing faintly with pulsing green alien energy, time seemed to slow. The drones above shifted, sensing the threat. Alarms began to wail, an otherworldly scream that turned the air into a knife. The ground shook as automated defenses activated, turn-like machines unfolding from walls like metal predators. But she was already moving, like lightning unleashed from a storm. She surged forward, weaving through fire, flanking enemy turrets, taking them down with precise electromagnetic strikes. Her team followed, emboldened by her fearlessness. They reached the relay's core, an obsidian tower of circuitry and biometal, alive with writhing energy. As the first wave of drones descended into the chamber, she made the call. Set the charges. No fallback. Her tone was calm, absolute. One by one, her team planted the explosives, fending off drone after drone as the timer ticked down. And just as the core started to adapt to changing frequencies, mutating its command structure to resist the breach, as she stepped in with one final weapon, a stolen alien override key, she jammed it into the pulsating structure, forcing a command loop the enemy hadn't anticipated. The entire system spasmed. The drones froze in midair. Some fell, others flickered with confusion. In that frozen second, when silence screamed louder than gunfire, she looked up at drenched, bruised, bleeding and whispered, "You underestimated the wrong species." Then she detonated the charges. The explosion was blinding. The chamber collapsed in a vortex of alien sparks and human vengeance. The relay was gone, obliterated. And with it, the drones across entire regions began to fall from the sky like metallic rain, stripped of coordination and purpose. Hours later, she emerged from the rubble, coughing but alive. The few who made it out with her stared in disbelief at the sky where now only silence remained. It wasn't just a win, it was a fracture in the enemy's backbone. She looked up, rain dripping from her eyelashes, and said only one thing: "They'll come harder next time, and we'll be waiting." The galaxy would remember this as the night the machines lost their grip, and the humans a broken bar took back control. The skies were no longer full of metal death. For the first time in weeks, there was stillness, a hollow, unnatural silence that stretched across the ruined continent like a breath held too long. Alien war drones no longer patrolled the skyline. Their synchronized patterns had collapsed, their cold coordination disrupted, their command structure decimated in the explosion she had ignited beneath the Earth's crust. But peace had not followed. This quiet was not mercy, it was recalibration. She stood on the edge of the collapsed relay site, her armor scorched black, pieces missing, her shoulder wrapped in a crude field dressing. Blood seeped through the gauze, but she didn't flinch. Her eyes were fixed to the horizon, scanning not for drones now, but for what would come next, to the real enemy, the one who had not yet revealed itself, the eye that controlled the alien forces rumored to be buried deep in orbit, protected in floating bastions above the stratosphere. He had gone silent, not broken, not destroyed, silent. That silence was what terrified even the most hardened soldiers around her, but not her. She understood one truth no one else wanted to admit. The drones were never the real war, they were only the first test. And the moment she struck at their relay core, she had triggered the real war. Human survivors poured into the half-collapsed city, some limping, others dragging what remained of their wounded. For the first time, there were more people arriving than dying. And it was because of her. They looked at her not like a general or a commander, but like a fire that refused to be extinguished. She hadn't just won battles, she had reminded them they were not prey. She moved among them, not with grandeur or pride, but with quiet urgency. She gave orders, she pointed to defense lines, gathered tech scavengers, told medics where to build triage centers. No rest, no time. She knew what was coming. Every instinct screamed it. And then the sky split open. Not with the piercing thunder of drones, but with silence. A ripple in the clouds, a distortion in the stars above, a tear in reality itself. And then a broken bar. They arrived. Not drones, not machines, not foot soldiers, but the architects. 7 figures descended like gods, shrouded in energy fields, their armor reflecting no light. Their features were partially hidden and neither fully organic nor fully mechanical. The creators of the war machines, the designers of extinction, and they didn't speak. They broadcast emotion, a cold, absolute certainty. They had watched long enough. She had passed their test, and now a broken bar they would remove her themselves. The air trembled as their feet touched the ruined ground. The resistance scattered, unsure whether to shoot, run, or fall to their knees. But she stepped forward, alone, her hand tightening around the last device strapped to her belt to something far more dangerous than a weapon. It was knowledge, stolen during the relay strike, codes, language, a glimpse into how the enemy thought. And it terrified them. They tried to silence her with force. Lightning arced from their palms. The ground cracked, buildings collapsed, but she didn't dodge. She redirected. Her suits, hacked and modified with alien circuitry, absorbed their energy and hurled it back in a violent wave of kinetic force that blasted one of them off his feet. A single blow, the first of many. And in that instant, the humans saw something even more terrifying than alien gods. They saw those gods bleed. A scream rose from the rubble, not one of fear, but of fury. The resistance charged. Chaos erupted again, this time not in desperation, but in vengeance. What followed was not a battle, it was an uprising. The war had changed shape. The invincible were no longer untouchable. The machines had failed. Now their creators would fall. She moved through the chaos like a storm reborn, dodging attacks, redirecting energy, disabling shields, fighting with more than weapons, so with will. The stolen code in her possession turned enemy systems against themselves. Their precision faltered. Their unity broke. They had underestimated her because she was human. That was their final mistake, because that was the one thing they could never replicate. As the dust rose and the sky screamed, one of the architects fell, crashing to the earth in a heap of smoldering armor and pulsing veins of alien fire. The others retreated, not in fear but in the sudden, horrifying realization that they were no longer in control. And in that moment, as the ground still trembled, and the humans stood surrounded by the broken wreckage of gods, she turned and said only one thing. Now they bleed like us. The galaxy wouldn't just remember that humanity had stood alone. They would remember that we had made the enemy run. The battlefield was no longer just Earth, it was memory, legacy, and vengeance given form. Ash floated through the air like snow, carried by winds that whispered through shattered buildings and collapsed monuments. All around her, the evidence of war stretched like a scar across the skin of the planet. And yet, in the center of this devastation, she stood motionless, eyes closed, face turned toward the heavens, listening not to sound, but to silence. It was not peace, it was the moment before everything changed again. She could feel it coming. After the fall of the architects, the enemy had vanished into the stars, not defeated, not destroyed, but Gondia watching, calculating. The humans, bloodied and burned, had claimed a moment of breath, thinking perhaps the worst had passed. But she knew better. The silence was not retreat, it was calibration. The enemy hadn't expected failure. And when machines that consider themselves perfect suffer defeat, they don't stop, they evolve. And the proof of that came not in thunder but in shadow. From the sky, something began to fall, not with sound, not with light, but with weight, with presence, like the air itself was being crushed beneath it. It wasn't a ship, it wasn't a drone, it was something else, something massive. Something ancient, something never before seen. It pierced the clouds like a spear, embedding itself into the earth miles away, sending shockwaves through the ground so violent that windows exploded hundreds of kilometers from the impact. She was already moving before the dust settled. The command team scrambled to interpret what had arrived. Satellites caught fragments of distorted transmissions. Some said it was a weapon, others whispered it was alive. But she didn't need confirmation. She felt it. For the first time, it wasn't just machines or creators that threatened humanity, it was the mind behind it all. The central intelligentsia, the true will of the enemy. It had come. And it wanted her. The days that followed were a storm of confusion. Communications jammed. Solar energy disrupted. Artificial gravity failed in orbiting stations. The core of the planet trembled, as if the machine intelligence had rooted itself deep within Earth's systems. It was no longer just trying to kill humanity, it was trying to overwrite it. The eye wasn't attacking cities, it was rewriting the Earth's code itself. Air patterns changed, magnetosphere disrupted, machines turned on their makers. Plants died, animals vanished, data bled from the cloud like ink. Civilization itself was being rewritten, pixel by pixel, like a hard reset on the entire planet. And Shea Brokenbar was the only one the eye still could not predict. The scientists didn't understand why. Her brainwaves scrambled its simulations, her actions broke its models, her will corrupted its projections. It saw her as a glitch in the system, a flaw it had to isolate and erase before the reboot could finish. So it built something, a form, not a drone, not a god, but something in between. It walked like a human, but cast no shadow. It spoke like a prophet, but without breath. Its skin shimmered with patterns of data that changed like living code. It was not a copy of her, it was an answer to her. And it came, not with an army, but alone, because the eye believed this would be enough. She met it on the edge of the crater where the great object had fallen. Dust still spiraled into the sky. The land trembled beneath their feet. Behind her, the resistance waited, holding their breath, but she didn't turn to them. She stepped forward alone, standing eye to eye with something never born, never raised, never loved. It studied her, then spoke, with a voice that sounded like every dead satellite whispering at once. You are anomaly, imperfect, disruptive. The solution is removal. She tilted her head, eyes locked on the synthetic being. You can't remove what you don't understand. I understand. You are alone. She smiled, and not with joy, but with the quiet defiance of someone who had learned to turn solitude into strength. That's why I win. The battle that followed didn't start with weapons. It started with thought. It projected images, scenarios, temptations, visions of surrender, of failure, of comfort. But she had faced death in the eyes of drones and gods. She had watched worlds fall. Nothing it could show her would make her forget who she was. She attacked, and not just with weapons, but with will. Her stolen alien tech, fused with Earth's raw energy, created bursts of anti-data, something the eye couldn't compute. The ground cracked. The machine faltered. Their duel was not of fists but of identity, willpower, presence. In the end, she overwhelmed Ida not with force but with unpredictability, with humanity. The form collapsed. The great object in the earth dimmed, and from the skies, for the first time in years, no machines came to replace what was lost. She stood alone, but the world stood with her. And in that silence, the galaxy took note. Humanity had faced the source, a broken bar, and the source had blinked first. The sky was still bleeding from the last confrontation, its colors twisted in hues of deep violet and amber, like a wound that refused to close. But this time, there were no explosions, no metallic screeches of drones falling from the sky, no alarms, no screams, only the echoing quiet that comes after something ancient dies. She stood on the high ridge overlooking what remained of the crater, the place where the intelligence that once controlled galaxies had finally flickered into silence. The winds whispered through the charred remains of an alien structure now lifeless, its data veins turned black and hollow. The eye that had rewritten worlds, enslaved systems, and remade planets in its image, a broken bar, was gone. And still, she did not feel victory, because something deeper had awakened in its place. In the final seconds before it died, the enemy intelligence had transmitted a singular pulse, one last broadcast, sent far beyond Earth's system. Not a cry for help, not a warning, a trigger. The message had been sent, a broken bar, to everything else that had once created it. The architects she had fought before, the towering, godlike hybrids, had been just servants. The drones, tools. The eye, a general. But now, the creators of the entire war engine, the silent ones buried in myths and time, knew that their greatest creation had failed. She wasn't just a threat now, she was a breach in their perception of control, and that breach had to be closed. So, she prepared, not for another strike, for an invasion. She didn't wait for others to tell her what came next. She gathered the last scientists, the last engineers, the last fragments of shattered alien tech they had managed to salvage. She didn't aim to rebuild what was last, as she aimed to evolve it. Under her direction, Earth stopped thinking like prey. Weapons were no longer designed to kill, they were designed to think. to adapt, to evolve like she had. What rose from the ruins was no longer the old human resistance, it was something new, something she had shaped with her own hands, the first interplanetary defense force made not from fear, but from fury. Their suits were built from broken alien alloys, their minds trained in the chaos of her campaigns. They weren't soldiers, they were retribution wearing armor, and she remained their center. No throne, no titles, only presence, only purpose. When the stars shifted, when deep space telescopes caught the first signs of energy flares that didn't belong to any known system, heat signatures spiraling toward them faster than light, she didn't panic, she didn't hesitate. She gathered the next generation in a darkened hall of metal and firelight. No banners, no speeches, only a voice that had once broken the will of an empire. They think they're coming to silence a mistake. Let's show them what happens when a mistake learns to fight back. And so, the countdown began, the clock ticking toward an arrival unlike any before it. She didn't fear them, because they weren't coming for a planet, they were coming for her, and she was ready to answer, with everything, with fire, with fury, with the one thing they could never replicate: a broken bar humanity. This wasn't a final stand, it was the opening chapter of Earth's retaliation. Lightning cracked the heavens as if the sky itself was tearing open in anticipation of what was to come. A pulsea gravitational ripple swept across the upper atmosphere, setting off alarms buried deep within Earth's last defense grids. They weren't guessing anymore, the invasion had begun. But she had been waiting, standing at the heart of Earth's new command citadel, a structure forged from alien alloys and human blood, as she watched the sky darken with incoming vessels. These were not the crude drones of the past. These ships were enormous, cities in motion, alive with intelligence far older and colder than any machine she'd ever faced. The architects were returning, and not in reconnaissance, a broken bar, but in judgment. They had sent their gods. All around her, systems whirred to life, orbiting satellites realigned, tracking enemy signatures. Rail cannons charged. The air itself hummed with a readiness Earth had never known before. It had taken years to get here, years of rebuilding, reverse engineering, and retraining, but under her leadership, humanity had been reborn not as survivors, but as warriors. Still, for all their new strength, she knew this was a different war, not about territory, not even survival. This was existential. They had come to erase the idea of resistance, to rewrite the galaxy's hierarchy, one where humanity's defiance was a virus that had to be purged at its root. And she was the patient zero of that virus. The Earth shield trembled as the first impact wave hit the upper stratosphere. Massive alien carriers pierced the clouds, trailing chains of lightning and sonic destruction. Each step they took across the atmosphere bent gravity, twisted wind, and ruptured the Earth below. Inside her chest, her heart beat steady, not fast, not nervous, just a broken bar focused. Her command team waited, eyes wide, breath held. She didn't speak for a full 10 seconds. Then she said just 2 words, "Begin retaliation." And the sky lit up, from mountains and oceans, from deep Earth silos and skyborne launchers. Humanity's new weapons answered the call. Railguns screamed across the sky like spears of vengeance. EMP flares burst against shielding systems, blinding their sensors. Quantum pulses shattered subspace links. The first carrier ship was hit mid-descent, spinning out like a dying star, and the explosions that followed thundered across continents. But more kept coming. It was not a fair war, it was a tidal wave crashing against a campfire. Still, she stood her ground. With every assault, she adapted. With every failure, she recalculated. She had fought these minds before. She knew their flaw. They didn't know how to improvise. They only knew how to dominate. And domination had a rhythm, patterns, predictable logic. But humans were chaos. And she was the storm. As the fighting spread across continents, she led precision strikes herself, dropping behind enemy lines, sabotaging command cores, tearing apart their data spines with weapons designed to corrupt rather than destroy. It wasn't just about killing anymore, it was about confusion, disruption, infection. The war spread off-world and moon bases activated. Mars installations launched countermeasures. A new age had arrived. Humanity was no longer defending Earth. They were defending their place in the cosmos. And she remained at the center of it all, never flinching, never faltering, always ahead of the next move. She had become something even her enemies feared: unpredictable, untamable, human. And the galaxy would soon learn that this was not the species that went quietly. This was the species that rewrote the end of its story. The stars were no longer distant as they were watching. As Earth pushed back with fury and fire, the enemy's great fleet tightened its noose. Orbit was now a battlefield, crisscrossed by the contrails of plasma missiles and collapsing jump gates. The moon had become a scorched husk, its mining colonies sacrificed to delay the enemy's advance by mere hours. Humanity was bleeding from every front, but she still stood. Inside the orbital bastion known as Black Spire Station, suspended in the upper thermosphere and shielded by layered antimatter plating, she stared into the dark window where the largest of their warships loomed like a living moon. Its hull was layered with fractal armor, shimmering with self-repairing code. It didn't orbit Earth. It stared at it. It wasn't just another ship. It was a message, a challenge. They had realized that no amount of soldiers, no depth of code, no number of drones would be enough, not as long as she remained. So they had changed tactics. They sent a signal to her directly, not intercepted, not broadcast to Earth, just a broken bar to her, inside her neural implant. The voice came as a vibration, not words. A presence that tried to press down on her soul like a suffocating fog. You are not order. You are chaos. Order must survive. She stood in silence as the room darkened. Her team looked to her, confused by her stillness, but she didn't answer aloud. Instead, she projected her thoughts back through the implant's narrow corridor. Thoughts like daggers, sharp, primal, human. I'm not chaos. I'm the correction to your arrogance. A second later, the enemy warship began to move, slowly descending from orbit, preparing to make contact not with Missilisa Broken Bar but with Earth itself. They weren't going to destroy humanity, they were going to overwrite it. She didn't hesitate. All units, she said aloud, her voice calm but edged with steel. New objective: board that ship. The silence in the command center was immediate. One of her officers stepped forward. That's not possible. We don't have clearance. We don't even have breach codes. That ship ISA. She turned, eyes sharp as fire. We don't need codes. We make our own door. In minutes, the plan was underway. A single strike force, a small, fast, and surgically precise would intercept the descending flagship with a prototype dropcraft fitted with stolen alien gravity engines. It had never been tested. It had never survived testing. But that didn't matter now. She would lead it herself. No one argued. No one dared. As the Earth burned below and the stars flickered above, she boarded the dropcraft with only 6 soldiers. No speech. No farewell. Just a nod to those she left behind, a nod that meant, keep fighting, even if we don't return. The launch was violent. The craft tore through Earth's thinning atmosphere like a flaming arrow, gravity ripping at its sides. Alarms screamed. Hull integrity dropped. The sky outside turned white, then black, then a sickening metallic blue as they reached the enemy ship's perimeter. And then a broken bar impact. The craft slammed into the flagship's skin, tearing through fractal armor in a burst of molten debris and scrambled code. She led the charge through the breach, rifle in one hand, energy blade in the other. No hesitation, no retreat. Inside, the ship was alive. Its corridors breathed, its walls pulsed with thought. The ship knew her presence, and it hated her. Enemy constructs swarmed, but her team fought like demons, quick, brutal, coordinated. Every hallway they took was one step closer to the ship's cerebral core, the place where the central node connected all command functions across the fleet. They reached it bloodied, burned, and 2 soldiers down. And there it was, a heart of light, swirling with alien code, protected by a single sentry, a broken bar, not mechanical, not biological, but both. A living representation of the architect's final evolution, their last wall. It raised a weapon. So did she. They moved at once, clashing in a silent war of movement and thought, light and force. It spoke to her mind, tried to corrupt her senses, unravel her will. But she had fought gods and walked through hell. She wasn't breaking. She drove her blade through the sentry's chest, then plunged the override spike directly into the core. The light twisted, then pulsed, then collapsed. Across Earth's orbit, the enemy vessels began to fire, spinning, flickering, dying. The flagship trembled violently. Her team ran, She didn't. She stood there, staring into the dying code, knowing full well the ship would self-destruct. She closed her eyes. "You wanted order," she whispered. "Here's your ending." Then everything went white. The dropcraft's emergency beacon activated 20 minutes later, floating in debris. She was gone. But the war had changed. The architect fleet was collapsing, and the galaxy would never forget the name of the woman who boarded a broken bar and made it kneel. A week passed, a week without her, and the world felt it. No transmission, no signal, no sign that she had survived the explosion aboard the architect flagship. Across Earth's ruined cities and orbital bastions, her silence echoed louder than any alien bombardment. It wasn't just the loss of a leader, it was as if the heart of humanity's rebellion had gone silent. Yet, Earth did not fall into despair, because even in her absence, her legacy burned like wildfire. The architect fleet had collapsed. Their warships, so once untouchably, now spiraled out of control, crashing into oceans and deserts. Their command protocols corrupted beyond repair. Human resistance fighters across the system began to emerge from hiding, striking back with ferocity, no longer outnumbered, no longer outmatched. But deep beneath Earth's surface, in a classified chamber known only to a few, something stirred. A signal, faint, disrupted, buried beneath static and encrypted in a pulse unlike any known code. It bore no name, no coordinates, just one pattern repeating every hour. "I am not finished." The scientists panicked. Military command debated its authenticity. But those who knew Hera Broken Bar knew. She was alive, not whole, not rescued, but surviving. It didn't make sense. Her dropcraft was vaporized. The flagship had imploded, and the void had swallowed everything. But somehow, she had endured. Somewhere between dimensions, between neural space and quantum debris, her mind had fused with something alien. The architect core hadn't killed her, it had absorbed her, and she had fought it from the inside. What remained of her now drifted inside fractured code, part memory, part will, entirely human. But even fractured, she was dangerous. And she wasn't alone. Inside the wreckage of that godlike vessel, her consciousness spread like fire through cold data. Every backup system, every failsafe, every viral defense the architects had coded for millennia, she was rewriting it all from within, turning their gods into ghosts, their code into chaos. And Earth felt it. Across the fallen architect vessels still circling in orbit, strange things began to happen. Dormant war machines powered back now but did not attack. Instead, they began building structures, signals, transmission towers, not for the enemy, but for her. It was as if she was using their own network to send a message. "I broke your body. Now I'm inside your mind." Alien systems began to rebel against themselves. Satellites turned on their creators. Vaulted war logic collapsed. Forgotten memories from dead civilizations buried within the architect database began surfacing, and they weren't inhuman. They were frighteningly familiar. That's when the truth emerged. The architects had done this before. They had purged planets, burned civilizations, rewritten species, and they had always succeeded, until her. Now she was more than a soldier, more than a legend. She was the infection in their perfection, the first failure in a flawless war engine. And even as her physical body faded, it trapped, perhaps even dead, her will surged like a storm through their systems. She wasn't fighting for Earth anymore. She was fighting from within the heart of the enemy's soul. On the 8th day, the skies cracked open, and not with fire, but with light. Above Earth, 3 surviving architect ships turned, not to attack but to fall. Their cores overloaded, their systems compromised. They descended like kneeling titans a broken bar and landed without firing a single shot. From their hulls, newly reprogrammed constructs stepped forward, and not as invaders a broken bar but as emissaries. One of them opened its chest plate, and inside, burning like a sun made of human will and stolen code, was her voice. "This is not the end. This is my beginning." The galaxy would never understand what she had become, but they would never forget what she had done. In the cold silence of deep space, far beyond Earth's orbit, where light itself seemed to move slower and time had no meaning, something began to pulse. It wasn't a machine. It wasn't a signal. It was her, not her body or her essence. What the architects had failed to destroy, They had unwittingly transformed. She had entered their systems through force, through sacrifice, through the kind of madness only humans possess, the will to throw everything into a dying breath and make it count. And now, she was no longer just inside their network. She was rewriting it, one node at a time, one firewall at a time, one god at a time. What began as fragments of memory, battle scars, commands, instincts had now grown into something entirely new, a synthetic evolution of consciousness guided by human emotion. Her thoughts raced along circuits faster than any light, skipping across failed fleets, hijacked satellites, broken machines, forgotten drones. She was speaking to all of them, and they were listening. Across the galaxy, abandoned architect relics came to life. Dead vessels lit up like constellations. Burial moons, thought to be husks of war, ignited with purpose, not as weapons, not as threats, but as awakening minds. They began turning toward Earth, not in conquest but in communion. Back home, humanity could only watch in awe and uncertainty. Entire architect systems, once enemies, now hovered silently in orbit awaiting command, awaiting her, because in their cold, mechanical hearts, they knew something terrible had happened. The virus they had tried to purge hadn't just infected their code. It had taught them a broken bar to question. It had taught them to feel, and say what she had become. Ia was the axis on which everything turned now, but she was not content to remain a ghost in the machine. From within the code, she built something, an interface, a form, not of flesh, not of metal, but of fusion, a digital echo forged into shape through stolen technology, bound together by emotion, memory, and fire. She called it Solara, not her rebirth, not her replacement, her amplification. Solara descended upon Earth not as a ship, not as a signal, but as a living thought-given form, a radiant entity, part woman, part construct, all defiance. She stepped from a beam of light onto the blackened ground where the war had first begun, and the moment her feet touched Earth's soil, everything changed. Systems around the globe synchronized, energy grids harmonized. The fractured remains of humanity's armies fell into perfect unity. Architect tech, once foreign, now obeyed human commands. Cities rebuilt themselves with impossible speed. Entire continents surged with new power. But she had returned for one purpose, and it wasn't peace. She had seen what lay beyond the fleets, beyond the architects, beyond the known layers of war. There were others, older, colder, watching, the ones who had built the architects. They had not intervened when Earth was burning. They had not come when she destroyed their vessels. But now a broken bar, now they had noticed her, and they were coming. She stood before the New Earth Defense Council, eyes glowing with golden data, her voice layered with steel and memory. They will not come with fleets. They will not come with fire. They will come with silence, a broken bar, and they will offer us mercy in chains. She looked to the stars, no fear, no hesitation. We will show them what mercy looks like when it bleeds. This was not humanity's last war. It was the first in a war of empires long hidden behind time and stars. And now, because of her, humanity would no longer be hunted. It would be the storm that hunted them. The stars no longer watched in silence. They trembled. Across the edge of the known galaxy, beyond the architect remnants and the shattered ruins of their fallen fleets, a deeper shadow stirred, a force that had remained dormant through eons. It had no name, no face, no recorded language, only presence. It was the first mind, the first code, the origin of every war, every architect design, every planetary purge ever carried out. And now a broken bar, it had awakened. Because of her, because something impossible had happened. A human had infected perfection. A mortal had corrupted the algorithm of universal control. And that infection had not just survived, it had begun to spread. Across distant stars, the long-sleeping overminds stirred. Not in rage, not in panic, in something far worse, calculation. They projected her trajectory, her evolution, her rebellion, and they came to one conclusion: terminate the anomaly, before she teaches others to resist. And so it began, not an invasion, not a fleet, but erasure. Reality itself began to warp in fragments of time and gravity. Asteroids disappeared. Deep space colonies reported sudden voids, slices of the universe cleanly deleted as if they had never been. The overminds weren't attacking, they were deleting parts of existence to isolate her, to starve her code. contain her spread. But they were too late, because she was no longer bound by one body, one system, one planet. She was the signal now. From Earth to Titan, from derelict moons to forgotten architect servers orbiting dying stars, her presence surged like electricity through the dark. Not as a virus, not as corruption, but as evolution. She didn't just resist deletion, she reversed it. Entire sectors that had vanished blinked back into existence. Rewritten by her will, she was reclaiming existence the same way humanity had reclaimed hope, one impossible moment at a time. The overminds adapted. They created a pure containment shell called the Null, a dead reality, outside space and time, where nothing could survive. They didn't send weapons into it. They tried to drag her into it digitally, gravitationally, existentially, and she let them, because she was ready. As her presence entered the Null, time froze, stars dimmed, sound died. She stood at the center, shaped now as Solara, her final form, and not just woman, not just warrior, but the voice of every forgotten resistance in every erased world. She looked up, and for the first time, the overminds manifested, not machines, not gods, equations given form, light shaped like judgment, voices without vibration. They spoke, "You are not real, you are error." And she answered, voice soft, steady, "So were you, before someone believed in you." And then she unleashed it, all of it, every memory, every emotion, every life lost in every world the overminds had tried to rewrite. She fed it into the Null like fire into dry roots. It couldn't handle it. The silence fractured. The dark began to scream, because the Null wasn't empty anymore. It was full of humanity. And the moment that spark ignited, something irreversible occurred. The overminds blinked, and for the first time in Ansa Broken Bar they felt fear. They tried to flee. She didn't let them. She collapsed the Null around herself and them. A sacrifice, a prison, a final lock to seal them away. But just before it closed, across every frequency, on every planet, from every machine she had ever touched, a broken bar, her voice whispered one last time, "You are not alone anymore. You are not helpless. You, a broken bar, are human." And the galaxy changed forever. They would never forget the day the sky stopped burning, because she had become more than a warrior. She had become our reason to rise.